Hello students, today we are doing lesson 4.2. This is how to attack a word problem. This won't be a very long lesson, and most of this you kind of already know. So let's start out by just going over some steps for solving word problems. Okay, so solving word problems. Remember, if I go too fast, just hit pause so that you can get everything written down. Okay, the first thing I want you to do is read the problem. Okay, I'm not going to write everything down that I'm saying. You can add more if you want to. So when you're reading it, I want you to look for operational words. Okay, and we've talked about those in past notes, so you can go back and look at those. You look for operational words. Operational means which operation are you going to use? Plus, minus, times, divide. Okay, so you're going to look for those words. You might want to draw a picture. Draw a picture. You might want to, this is important. You need to assign variables. So you're going to assign an X or Y to whichever word you're looking for. Okay? Number 2, the second thing you're going to do is plan a method of attack. Plan a method of attack. Okay, and in this you could decide to maybe make a table. Make a table. You also want to translate phrases into expressions. And this is kind of like what I did with y'all before, where I just wrote the things above the wording. That's what you want to do. Of course, you wouldn't have the wording written down since it's in your book. Okay, number 3. What I want you to do on number 3 is actually solve an equation. So the first thing you're going to have to do to solve the equation is write the equation. Okay, and these will all be equations, so they'll all have equal sign in it. And then part B is solve it. Solve equation. Okay, so you're going to show all your steps just like you did on the last lesson. Okay, and then your last thing you're going to do is check your solution. Now in your book, they actually will show you how to do 1, 2, and 3 in all your examples, but I'm just going to talk about them. I don't need you to write down all the things. Okay, and check your solution. You want to make sure that you know what the numbers represent. What do numbers represent? So in other words, if your answer is supposed to be apples, then you need to make sure that you are writing about apples. If your answer has to do with people, you don't want to say, well, the answer is 4.2 people, because you can't have 0.2 people, right? So you would need to round and say only 4 people, right? And then part B is you need to ask yourself, have I answered all the questions? Sometimes there's more than one question. Have I answered all the questions? And then C, this one's very important. Are the answers reasonable? So if you get like negative 10 apples, that might mean maybe I didn't do it right, because you can't have negative 10 apples. Okay, so think about things like that. Okay, we only have 2 examples, so let's go ahead and start with the first one, and we're going to use the plan of attack on solving word problems. We're going to read, we're going to plan a method of attack, we're going to solve an equation, and then we're going to check our solution. Okay, so example 1 is the sum, and I'm going to write it where I have space above it to kind of write above it. The sum of 5 times. Remember, you need to be taking notes with me, and you need to make sure that you have it all written down on your paper. Okay, the sum of 5 times a number and 2 times the number is 161. Period, find the number. Okay, so before when we were doing some word problems, I would say you don't have to actually find the number. Well, today you do have to find the number because we have learned how to solve the problem. So we have the sum. Okay, so what does sum mean? That means plus. So the sum of 5 times a number. And remember that when we have the word sum, we're looking for that word and. So that's where the plus goes. Okay, and then 2 times the number. So 5 times the number is just 5n. And 2 times the number is 2n, right? And then we know the word is means equals, so we have 161. So there is my equation. 5n plus 2n equals 161. So I'm going to write that down here. 5n plus 2n equals 161. And now we can solve this problem. It may not look like one that you did on Thursday and Friday, but it actually is the same type. Because what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put these two together because they are like terms. Remember, we can add like terms. So I get 7n equals 161. And then I will divide by 7 on both of these. And I get n equals, what is that going to be? 23. So there's my answer. Oh, we didn't talk about this, all this that I was going to talk about. Okay, we read it. We looked for our operational words. We planned our method of attack, which was just translating phrases into expressions. We solved it right here. We wrote the equation and we solved it. And now our last thing is to check your solution. So first of all, all I was looking for was find the number. So my answer is just a number. It doesn't represent anything other than just a number. So now I just need to check it. So I'm going to do that the same way that I checked it the other day. Although this might look a little bit different to you, because when I check it, I'm going to put my answer, 23, right here, back up into the original equation. So I'm going to have 5 times 23 plus 2 times 23 equals 161. So notice I put the 23 everywhere there was an n. Okay, so this went where the n is. So I had 5 times n plus 2 times n equals 161. So instead of n, I put 23. Okay, now I'm going to do the multiplication. 5 times 23 would be 15, carry the 1, 115. And 2 times 23 would be 46. And then now I do 115 plus 46 is 161. And you would check that with your calculator. Okay, and that tells me that mine checks. And example 1 is done. Okay, let's move on to example 2. Okay, in example 2, this is not just a number. Let me change my colors here. Example 2 says this. In 14 years, Joe will be 42. How old is Joe? Okay, so my method of attack is going to be, I read the problem. I'm going to reread it one time. In 14 years, Joe will be 42. How old is Joe? Okay, so what I want to look for is an age, right? This is telling me how old is Joe. I want to know an age. So here's the word Joe. So I'm going to make my my variable be J. Okay. And this says he will be 42. So that means he's going to equal 42 in 14 years. So what do I do with 14 years? I'm going to add it to his age now. J is Joe's age now. And that will give me 42. So there's my problem. I'm going to flip this 14 plus J around because it will look better to y'all. And remember, my commutative property tells me, that I can flip around addition problems. So remember, commutative says A plus B equals B plus A. That tells me I can flip them around. So I flip the 14 plus J, so that looks like this, J plus 14. And now I'm going to just subtract 14 to solve the problem. and I get J equals, and when I solve this problem, I get 28. So this tells me that Joe is 28. Okay, so where it says how old is Joe, I would say Joe is 28 years old. And when you have a word problem, you should always answer it with a sentence. Okay, now I'm going to check my work. I probably should have done that before I wrote the sentence. And to check the work, I'm going to take my answer of 28 and I'm going to put it up here into J. So I'm going to have 28 plus 14 equals 42. So I took this problem right here, our original problem, and I just put the 28 in place of the J, and that's how I got 28 plus 14 equals 42. Okay, and then I'm going to solve this. So 28 plus 14, if you can't do that in your head, you need to do it in your calculator to make sure that it's correct. Don't just write 42 equals 42. Actually check it in your calculator so that you know that you're getting the answer right. Okay, and that's it for our lesson today. And we will come back tomorrow with some more solving equations.